I define soul purpose as living as the authentic version of myself that I love and accept, honoring my passions within as an act of self-love, and expressing that to the world in some way. So when I talk about my journey, I do talk about it in the lens of my soul purpose journey, because for a long time, I was anchored into both, I'll call it scarcity and survival consciousness, unbeknownst to me.
You're listening to the Woman of Value podcast. You are about to hear the story of a woman who is following her dreams and passions and creating positive change in the world.
Today's guest is former Global CMO Jessica Joines. She is a best-selling author of Dare to Believe, 12 Lessons of Living Your Soul Purpose. She's a spiritual coach and speaker, and she empowers women to realize their true potential through coaching, speaking, and her community platform. With a unique ability to simplify spiritual principles, she guides women through practical, life-altering DIY soul work. She's a natural speaker. She has keynoted at various events and hosts the live coaching show Soul Purpose. Her impact extends to corporate America, recognized in Forbes and other publications, and she holds an MS in communications from Cornell. Welcome to the show, Jessica.
Well, thank you so much for having me on. It's a pleasure to be here with you today.
I'm excited for our conversation. It's nice to meet a fellow coach and somebody who's written books and is speaking and doing all the fun things. So tell us what Woman of Value means to you, Jessica.
Really about loving and honoring yourself and your own worth. That's been a lifelong journey for me within the Women's Purpose community, which is a community that I founded and started in 2021 that really is the journey there as well, is, others will only honor your value when you come to know your own. And that's very much a journey of self-love, which I think is a journey that we're all here to do in one way or another. At 48, that I'm still on this journey. It's like, I don't know if it ever ends. But that's really what it means to me.
I like that. I was just having this discussion with my son because I was having a conversation with a client who was kind of hesitating about the work we were doing. I wasn't sure if she wasn't happy with me and the way I was coaching her, or something else was going on. And she was kind of emailing me about this. And I said, we need to get on a call and discuss this, because email is a terrible place to talk about these things. Because what happened to me was I was like, maybe I'm a bad coach to her. I don't know what's, and you go through this, even though I've been doing this for 16 years and I know I do a good job and I know I'm really good at what I do. It takes that little moment to start to doubt yourself. And I processed it before I even got on the call with her. So by the time we were speaking, I was fully confident that not only did I do a good job, but I was also open to feedback and I wanted to really get curious. And it was a great conversation. We just kind of modified what we were doing together and made it work for both of us. But this is the journey. I have 20 years on you and I still am grappling with all this. And you know what? It never ends. It shouldn't end. I think that it's important to even understand what loving yourself and honoring yourself is. I would love to hear a little bit more from you about what that looks like.
Yeah. Well, and I love what you just said, because I always find like we're constantly teaching what we most need to learn.
Yeah, for sure.
For me, for a long time, I thought it was self-care. And I really stepped out of that. Like self-care is an act of self-love, but it isn't self-love. So for me, self-love, and being someone that's in recovery, suffered from addiction most of my life, there's a lot of shame around that. So it's also coming to love what I'll call my shadow, right? Coming to also love and accept the parts of myself that, I have regret over, or the mistakes I made, or, different things I did at different moments and different times. So really, like, honestly, being able to, and I do a lot of mirror work, Louise Hay mirror work, like look at myself. And when I say I love you, I'm not just talking about like the good parts. I'm not just talking about like, shiny Jessica, or that achieved this or did that. Like No, the shame induced parts as well. And having acceptance of that, having acceptance of this, soul, having a human journey that is going to make mistakes and be flawed and go through moments of darkness. So the way that I really started tackling it was, I'm doing a timeline in my head, about 8 years ago. And what I started doing, and I opened up my book with this, I started writing love letters to myself and really started doing some of that Louise Hay, mirror work of really like being able to hold my own eye contact and say that to myself and just to feel something around that. So that's where it began. Today, I do a forgiveness practice at night for myself, like where I'll review my day and, focus on, the things I want to celebrate in myself, but also like the things like you just said, like the story in their head, like, oh my God, did I really say that, the things that are still there that I'm beating myself up over. And I just say, I choose to forgive you for that, Jessica, and do that. So that's how I live it in terms of a practice every day. We'll see what's next. That's where it is right now.
Those things are all great. And what I just keep hearing in my head is they're all self-compassion practices.
Yeah.
And part of healing is, first of all, the awareness that I have a problem in the first place, that there is something to address. So that awareness brings it to mind, it brings it to light. And then the practice of self-compassion is such an important part of healing. I see it so much in my dating coaching practice, where so many people bring the shame of past relationships or the fear of rejection, and they don't even take those steps to get out there and date because they're so worried about what would happen if it didn't work out. And so practicing those self-compassion practices, the forgiveness, I have value, I have worth, it really changes your whole life.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I always, say this, like, and I'm sure you share with your clients as well, like there's these two kind of simultaneous paths to healing. Both can be done at the same time. And the one is the awareness, and like whatever those root causes are, going back into childhood or, all that deep healing work. But then the second is the action. It's the new actions and behaviors. And just by taking those, it's like, you're creating those new neural pathways. You're creating a new lived experience that builds that. Like it's the whole, you want to build self-esteem, then do esteemable acts, So both equally important on that journey.
Yeah, the action piece is so important. And I like that you brought up the shadow piece, because we are not only the shiny parts. And I think, that humanity of who we are is what's attractive. It's not perfection or our desire to be perfect. I think that's actually what gets in the way of a lot of people's growth, is that desire to get it right, be perfect. I'm not ready until I am all perfect. It's just terrible, terrible recipe for disaster. So tell us, Jessica, your journey to finding your value started a little bit about the 8 years ago, writing love letters. I don't know if it started there or if it started somewhere earlier.
Yeah. My journey has really, I call it soul purpose, but I define soul purpose as, living as the authentic, version of myself that I love and accept, honoring my passions within as an act of self-love and expressing that to the world in some way. So when I talk about my journey, I do talk about it in the lens of my soul purpose journey, because for a long time, I was anchored into both, I'll call it scarcity and survival consciousness, unbeknownst to me. So my journey, it started, I wasn't fully aware I was on it, but it really started, right, gosh, how old am I? 28 years ago, when I first stepped out of college and into the corporate setting, and had spent all this time, studying and doing this thing to have this career, and then felt trapped because I realized, like, very early on, I didn't love it and wasn't passionate about it, but I didn't have enough confidence or belief in myself to choose myself, to choose what I love as a way to step out of it. So I spent a lot of years in suffering. And I say that in that I think like what we choose to do with our life, that 8-10 hours a day via work, is one of the most sacred decisions that we can ever make. And I treated it with like zero sacred reverence. I very much approached the world through that lens of survival and scarcity. Like, the world's hard. I need to figure out something I'm good at and go find a way to make money doing that so I can survive this like very challenging world. And that led me just in, cycles of emotional depletion, mental depletion. I reached burnout by my late 30s because I had just been killing myself for even achievement, success. It was like such a profound act of a lack of self-love, hindsight being 2020, that I didn't realize at the time. And I felt very much like a victim, to this world and to life. And finally, when the pain became too much, I decided to walk away from it all and step into, my self-love, i.e. soul purpose journey. And that was 2015. So 8-9 years ago. And what that looked like was giving myself the freedom to stop trying to live a life that I thought others wanted me to live or that I was supposed to live. Tangibly, that meant walking away from my almost 20-year career in marketing. I was, as you mentioned, I was in a very a job that a lot of people wanted. I was a global CMO of this big company and traveling the world. But, the secret is I felt trapped in it and I didn't love it and I didn't know out. And so I left without a real plan either, and I gave myself the permission to go on a bit of a spiritual seeking journey, if you will. To figure out who I was and who I wanted to be when I grew up. I very much did not feel grown up at that point in terms of understanding what I wanted to do with my life. And that's really what my book is about. It's about that journey for me. And I don't know if this is helpful to your listeners, but I went through all the traditional pathways of trying to figure out how to make money doing something I love. And none of those yielded any results for me that led to any, tangible solutions. So I leaned back on a lot of my spiritual study, a lot of ancient wisdom traditions, and tried to apply a bit of a practical twist on them to start to uncover soul purpose, which, cutting through a few steps here, but ultimately led me stepping into a version of what I'm doing now by about 2017 that has just continued to grow and expand in ways that have been surprising and unimaginable to me.
If you have ever played small to make other people feel comfortable, or maybe stayed in a bad relationship or job too long because you didn't think you could do any better, I wrote a book for you. It's called Becoming a Woman of Value: How to Thrive in Life and Love. Each of the 30 chapters contains a life lesson, a story, and an exercise to bring you closer to reaching your full potential. It's available on Amazon in paperback and Kindle. It takes courage to leave, and it takes courage to leave without an idea about where you're going. But I think that's the best way, honestly, especially if you have some money saved up and you're not going to be living on the streets. But I did that in my divorce. I did not leave for another man. I didn't leave. I left like I was in the middle of certification. I was just starting certification at coaching when I left my marriage. I had no idea how to make a living, how I was going to pay for anything. I had kids, it was crazy. But I think the people who leave a marriage for another person or leave a job for another job, you need some space. You need some space to figure out what's next for you. Otherwise, you just end up repeating the same patterns. I truly believe that. And if you're looking for 100% security before you make that next choice, you're not going to find it in most probability, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I always say it's like an energy play too, right to your point. And I was doing that for a while. I was like, oh, it's the company, it's this. And I, even if you look at my resume now, it's like I was somewhere like every 2 to 3 years. And then I would just attract the exact thing elsewhere, right? Because I hadn't taken that space. So I was still like in that vibration. I'm like, okay, I'm just recreating this now somewhere else. Or in your case, it could have been with someone else.
Which,
right? Yeah.
It definitely could have been. I mean, I started to fall in love with somebody at the end of my marriage, which was actually the catalyst to end my marriage. but he was a terrible person for me. I mean, it would have been awful. And so, it got me to take that next step. And I feel like sometimes it's that wake-up call. It's not the right person or the right career. It's just that I got to get out. I got to move forward into something that is better. So tell us what you're doing today. You said, you eventually found this life's journey, the life's purpose. Tell us a little bit about what that looks like.
Yeah. Well, the heart of what I'm doing and where I spend, most of my love and focus is on the women's purpose community. I started creating retreats for retreats for my former self is what I say, so kind of high powered executive women, mostly in a corporate environment. But I'd wanted to do something really different around that. I wanted to create what I hadn't been experiencing or had experienced when I was in that role, which is a place that, coming together with these women in similar types of jobs and circumstances, but from a place of the heart and true, embodied vulnerability connection, versus a lot of the events I'd gone to at that time period were still very transactional, very much exchanging business cards, coming in a little bit from a place of ego. Oh, I have this title here. I'm on this board here. So I wanted to do something really different. And the first one I had was in 2018. And it was come in, you're not introducing yourself by your titles or labels, no kind of traditional identity. And instead talking about the things you care about, who you are at your heart center, adjectives to describe you. And it was very well received. And so that led to the creation of the Women's Purpose Community, which is a year-round community for female leaders, though we've even expanded a little bit beyond that in a traditional sense. And it's women who just want to focus on their personal and spiritual growth with, other women that are in similar types of environments and situations. So it's not leadership development at all. We come in and we do really deep soul level work. We talk about who we are at a soul level. We talk about the journey that I believe we're all here to do, which is to awaken out of ego and into more of our soul self. And we do topics and work all throughout the year together within the walls of this community.
I love that. I think there's so many communities that support women who want to achieve.
Yeah.
And very few that really will support their heart and their vulnerability and their growth. And it's one of the hardest things we do is find a way to express our feelings, our needs. We're human. We're not just machines. And so many of us become machines, which is just so dangerous and so unhealthy.
Yeah. Well, you'll love this then. So not this past year, but the year, and we still have our in-person retreats every year, but the theme of the retreat was my worth isn't what I produce. And, as like women coming in they're like, well, if I'm not identifying by my doing, or it really didn't know how to talk about that they're innately worthy, who they are beyond this constant addiction to achieving, just more, and feeling an empowerment from that versus, what if we were all born worthy? What would that mean? Yeah.
Well, I think, it starts in childhood. It starts with how we're valued as children, as I'm sure you know. And most of us are valued for our achievements. Oh, you got an A? Oh, you got a B? Why not an A? Did you clean the house? Did you do your chores? Did you do? Did you show up? Did you set the table? I mean, these are how we are valued. And how many parents really took the time to say, how do you feel? Wow, look at the person you are. Look at this beautiful person that you are. Look at these wonderful things you do for other people and how you help people. And it influenced how I parented, because I was not parented with any emotions. And you're like, oh, what are feelings? I don't know. And it's one of the reasons I focus so much on communication skills, boundaries, vulnerability in my coaching practice, because it is such an important thing. So I love what you're doing here.
Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate that.
So let's talk about your dream for the future, Jessica. What does that look like?
I'm in this balance. I definitely still have dreams, and I'll talk about that in a minute. I'm in this interesting balance right now of just being open to whatever universe has in store, and this like new level of surrender. And it's almost like, and for those who celebrate, if you don't, please don't be offended, but like being a kid on Christmas morning, like the unexpected. So my vision a little bit, and I do this affirmation every day, is like, I'm available to unexpected miracles or blessings I can't even imagine. I am open and, available to all the good that's available to me. Use me for the highest, use me for the greatest light and greatest good. And finding the balance between anything I'm holding on to, even from a sense of positive attachment, which I feel for years now I've been able to do when I do visioning work or intention work, and to just be surprised. So that's like, it's something I'm toggling with very much in a very real way right now. But with that, my vision, I want to help more women, I always, the intention, women that I can help, that they find me and I find them. Something that's really on in a tangible way I'm working on this year, and hopefully more in the future, is doing more speaking. I was doing a lot before COVID. COVID changed things. My intention and the things I was focused on changed, but that's a passion for me. It really, one of the dreams when I was a kid and pursued was acting. And there's something I love about the stage, but also being able to bring, this kind of, motivation, inspiration, awareness to women, the intersection of that will always really drive me. So I've been trying to open up and create more space for that this year, and hopefully will in the future as well.
I like that you bring the kind of Eastern and Western future focus, because, this society that we live in here in the United States is very focused on the doing. And so that's the planning and the future. And honestly, you can't usually just be open and have no plans, right? But that ability to open to whatever happens, to be surprised, is such an important place to strive for, that place of surrender to the unexpected. So I love that both are true. And I think it's a good place for people to strive for. So
yeah,
I like it.
Yeah, I probably took it to, in just challenging myself to really, because I look at my life now and what I'm doing versus the work I did before. And not that the work before didn't have sacred purpose. It just, I didn't have a passion in it. So I couldn't connect to that. Because I think no matter what type of job you have, what type of career you have, what I'm about to say, you can do anywhere, no matter what it is. It doesn't have to be, spiritual coaching and what I do, but is that I am co-creating with the universe, that I am allowing the universe to serve through me as a vessel. And so with that, but I probably took it a little bit extreme. Like it's crazy because, I was a CMO. We had like marketing plans, approval, I've not done I've done some rough kind of business plans, but nothing of like a real business plan since I've had this business. Not once. Instead, I've been like in this very surrendered, like, show me what's next, guide me, and really trying to like honor resonance, honor intuition, and let what unfolds and be at peace with whatever that is. I do think I need to like bring in a little bit more of that like divine masculine energy back in, a little bit more. Like I might've went too far on the pendulum, but it's been interesting. And I've learned a lot about myself. And even, thinking that I'm like a surrendered person, if we're in the mind, if we're thinking, it's most likely because we're trying to control something, because we're rarely thinking about what we're doing in any given moment. And so I've learned a lot about myself through like swinging the pendulum that way, but I might have to come just a little bit back.
It's all about balance,
Yeah.
And I think that there's what's coming to mind as you're talking is the difference between push energy and pull energy, I call it. And when you're trying to push for something to happen, it's a lot of that. It's very negative. It doesn't usually work. People don't like getting cold called and being pushed into a marketing plan. But when you pull them in through your passion, through your drive, through your own journey, that's the pull energy. And I think there's always that balance of, how am I doing this? Take a step back. I'm not a big metrics person. Somebody asked me recently, so what are the metrics of your podcast? And I'm like, I don't care. I mean, I do it because I love it. I know that people are listening. That's all that matters to me. I don't need to know, like a friend of mine measures how many times he gets on stage when he goes to the Moth to perform. So,
Yeah.
you don't know because you get there and they pull a name out of a hat. And if you get pulled onto stage, you do. And if you don't, there's like 40 people who've tried to get 10 spots. And so he goes, I have 21% of the times that I have gone, and I'm like, really? I, I don't think that way. But yeah, it's a different way to think. Some people love to measure everything, some people don't. And I find finding your own balance, whatever that is important because it's got to be your way. Otherwise, it feels fake and inauthentic.
Yeah. And even acknowledging like your own internal energy on that. But if I'm internally that day feeling like I'm pushing on maybe a day I need to rest, like, do I need to keep 9 to 5 hours every day, Monday through Friday? Can I take a day of rest? Can I wait until I feel the inspiration so that even internally, I'm always doing from a place of excitement or joy, not from like, oh, I got to get this done, or I need to do this, or I need to tick this box,
For sure.
Yeah.
And I've designed my life that way too, in that I don't coach on Mondays and Fridays, never coach on the weekends, don't do night coaching. Like people go, can I coach with you on Saturday? I'm like, no, I don't do that. I have a life. I have balance. I do what's important to me. Otherwise, I don't have a life, and that's not good for you or me. So let's move into the lightning round. Are you ready, Jessica?
Yeah, I'm ready. Yeah.
Okay, seatbelts on. Fill in the blank. I used to think I wasn't blank enough.
Smart.
It's amazing how I underachieved because I didn't want to know how smart I was. It's like really crazy. Well, if I don't try too hard, I'll never know if I'm really smart or stupid. Next question. What was the number one thing holding you back from becoming a woman of value?
Lack of belief in myself.
Yeah, isn't that always the case? It's amazing when you can acknowledge that and you like, oh, I'm getting in my own way. I can move out of the way and wow, what can I achieve then?
Yep.
What is the best advice you can give to a woman who wants to become more empowered?
Listen to your heart, not the voice of fear in your mind. I would say believe in the truth in your heart more than the voice of fear in your mind.
It's such an important message. And I want to highlight this because I'm actually in a speech contest talking about a really difficult decision that I had to make regarding my youngest daughter. I was told that she was probably not going to be healthy and I probably should abort her early on. And I had the option of aborting her at like 12 weeks of pregnancy or waiting until I was 20 weeks, which is halfway through, and then getting a more definitive test that would tell me whether she really was healthy or not. So the first option is the easy option. Not easy, it's never easy to abort, but the easier option and having a less painful, less complicated abortion, trying again, which is an option. But what if she was healthy? And then the second option, waiting till I was halfway through, meant that I was halfway through a pregnancy and then having a late term abortion is extremely complicated, but then maybe having a healthy child. And I chose with my heart and not the voice of fear. And I decided to wait and she was healthy, but I knew the option also was that she was not going to be healthy, but I couldn't live with myself if I made the choice out of fear.
I'm happy you listened to your heart.
Yeah, it's always the answer, but we don't always have the ability to process, just that you staying in corporate for so long, not knowing what your options were, that fear of how am I going to make a living? This is what I studied and this is what I should be doing. And other people have told me to do it. Yeah. And then getting quiet with your heart. And that's where the answers lie.
Yeah, it's true.
Next question is, what advice would you give to your younger self?
Oh man, the same. Listen, Dare to Believe. That's the title. Dare to believe in your heart. But I'll give you something different. Forgive yourself.
Forgive yourself for anything specific?
Everything, every day. Forgive yourself for everything every day. We spend so much time at least I always did, beating myself up for just really stupid things. So forgive yourself. Yeah.
What is something that people often get wrong about you?
They think I'm more woo and I don't know what the right, kind of la than I am. I always don't know. I'm like, you have no idea how analytical my brain is and what a thinker I am. So first perception, people don't always perceive me as someone who spends a lot of time in thought, analyzing problems, more right brain than left.
Yeah. It sounds like you lived a lot of your life in that part of your brain.
Yeah.
And that this is
people that meet me now, I'm like, oh no, you have no idea. You have no idea. Yeah.
And finally, Jessica, how would you like to be remembered?
As someone who helped people.
It's simple and profound. I love it. So Jessica, tell our audience the best way to find you.
Yeah, you can find me at my website. It's easy because it's my name, jessicajoines.com. As far as social media goes, I do the most on Instagram. I'm most active there, and that's at Jessica L. Joines.
And Joines is spelled with an E before the S.
Joines.
Yes.
Throw an E there, but the E is silent when you say it.
Okay. And we'll have links to your Instagram, your LinkedIn, your YouTube, all your websites in the show notes. Thank you so much, Jessica, for this inspirational conversation, for showing the world that it's never too late to pivot, that it's important to really follow your heart and go on a soul journey if you want to have your best life. And you're a perfect example of somebody who lives that life right now.
Thank you. It's been an honor to be on your show, and I wish you all the best in all your endeavors and everything that you're doing as well.
Thank you. Thanks everybody for listening. And if you love our show, please give us a high rating and review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to podcasts. Share this with others, and remember to be a woman of value.
If you would like to step more fully into your value, grab a free copy of The Ultimate Guide to Becoming a Woman of Value on my website, thewomanofvalue.com. Just click the link at the top of the homepage. And if you haven't already done so, be sure to click the subscribe button in your listening app. And if there's something in this episode that inspired you, please share it with others, because the more we share these inspirational stories, the more women of value we will have in this world. I'll see you next time.